Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio. In the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group, we are continuing with the theme of texture this month, and our challenge this week is crackle effects. And I'm going to show you a number of ways to get a crackle effect without having to use a crackle medium. So let's get started, and I will put this on at speed. My first approach is to use watercolours along with plastic wrap, that's saran wrap, and I'm just going to use these small A6 size watercolour postcards. Now this is a technique that I've done before, but I thought it was worth showing again. This won't give you a deep crackled effect, but it will give you the appearance of crackles and marks and textures. I'm going to start with this pearlized set of watercolours, so these give a nice shimmer, and I'm just going to get some water onto these to get them started, and I'll choose 3 colours. I always like to work with kind of 3 colours when I'm doing something like this, so just dabbing some water on to get them started. I'm then in a second just going to spray my card with a bit of water as well, and this will just help the paints to spread when I'm putting them on. Now this could be done with any type of watercolour paints. I can't actually remember the make of these, but any at all will do. So I'm just using a sort of pink, a purple and a kind of green. It's going towards a turquoise, and just spreading them out a bit, and then all I'm going to do is to take my piece of cling film, my plastic wrap, and place it over this, and the more wrinkles that are in it the better, and then all I'll do is to put this off to the side to dry. Now this sort of thing, the longer you can leave it, the better the effect that you'll get. And I'm just going to repeat this process, this time using I think a yellow, an orange and a kind of deep red colour, almost a rust red, and sprayed the card with some water. I'd put some water onto my paints just to start to soften them, start to activate them, and again I'm just going to do the exact same thing, and I will get a piece of the plastic wrap and put this on, and again looking to have as many wrinkles in there as possible. Getting it on, dabbing it in here and there, and then again I'll put that off to the side to dry. Next I have these cereal boxes, and I've put a thin layer of glue onto these. I cut these down just into a size that would allow me to show several techniques. If you want to experiment, use the little bits on the side as well. Now I have put a layer of glue onto these, just a thin layer of PVA glue. I will quickly show you how I did that. So this helps seal the cardboard a bit so that when you go to put on a layer of paint, it doesn't actually sink right in. But you'll see what it also does is to help the crackle start as soon as you put paint on it. So you'll see that in just a second. So what I'm going to do now is to paint all my pieces of cardboard, and I'm just going to use these acrylic craft paints, and I'll put all the colours underneath. So I'm starting with this dark purple, and I'm just going to get it right over my piece of cardboard. Now you could paint this out very smoothly if you wanted, or you can leave the brush strokes in it. That's just down to individual preference, but just making sure I get the card covered over. Next I'm taking a turquoise. These are both Hobbycraft paints. I'm not even washing my brush because I don't mind if some colour transfers. Most of this colour will be hidden underneath, but you will see bits of it peeking through when we put the crackle on. I also used Artiste colour of Pomegranate and a Pebeo dark taupe, and you'll see here that with just a little bit of drying it's already starting to crackle, but that just is my underlayer. And you can see it there as well. Now these are dry, with this one in turquoise, I'm just going to put on some white craft paint and a fair bit of water on my brush, and I'm just going to spread this paint out. Adding a bit more water there, and just making sure that it's well covered. And I'm actually going to use the plastic wrap with this one. I wanted to show you that you can also use the plastic wrap with acrylic paint, not just with watercolour paint. And I'm doing the exact same thing this time, just getting some crinkles in it. Now, when you use acrylic paint, this is really better left overnight until it's fully dry. And again, just putting that off to the side to dry. I'm now taking my board that has the taupe colour, the dark taupe, and what I'm going to do now, just drying my brush off a little bit. I just used the same brush both for glue and for paint, and all I'm going to do now is to put a layer of glue on here. So again, just spreading that out. Depending on the thickness, you will get a different effect. I'm putting this one on. It's not too thick, but it's not the thinnest of layers either. So just putting that on and spreading that out. And then what I'll do is I'll leave it just for a couple of minutes, just to start to dry. You don't want it to go bone dry, you still want it wet, and you can still see the slightly milky colour there on it, which tells me that it's not dry. Now I'm just going to take that same white craft paint and I'm just going to start brushing it over, and doing it this way will give me almost a kind of cracked wood effect. So it's like wood that's been painted and then it's cracked. Now, as far as possible, you don't want to go back over your paint, just try and do it in one line. You'll see I was able to do it better in some than others. And it doesn't matter if there's little bits that's missed. Now already that is starting to crack before I've even put any heat on it or before I've left it to dry. But I'm just going to show you applying some heat and you'll see the cracks start to appear. Now this would make a nice background, you know, if it was a bigger piece, you know, it would make a nice background for then showing things off again. So if you wanted to create a background, for example, to take images of artist trading cards or even jewellery, anything of that sort. So you can see that cracking there. Now where I did go back over it with the paintbrush at the start, it doesn't crack quite as much. That's not a problem, because if you look at wood that has weathered paint on it, you'll see that in some places it's often thicker than others. The cracks are bigger or deeper than others. And there we have it. I like the way that one turned out. So similar but just slightly different, taking my PVA glue again, putting a coat on. I put too much on, so I will move some off the page and I just put it on the paper at the side. But this time just making the brush strokes slightly different, less even application this time. I do leave that a minute or two to dry. There we go, made a cup of coffee back. You can still see the milky colour. So it's still wet at this time, just had a moment or two to dry a little. This time I'm going to take that turquoise paint. So it doesn't always have to be white on the top, just taking the turquoise, and again I'm just going to spread that out, putting it in a couple of different directions, both across the way and up and down. And it doesn't matter again if there's little gaps, it just adds to the effect. And again you'll see that starting to crack, and you'll see there that I've got the lines going across the way and indeed up and down the way. So the different colours, quite nice as well. And here is my final technique, and I'm just taking some white gesso and I'm going to put this directly on top of, in this case it's the dark purple, and just putting short strokes on this to begin with. I just want to get a first layer down. Now with this one you won't see a lot of the background colour, but I just wanted it on there anyway, just in case it did pop through in some places. So I'm starting to dry this with a heat tool, and you do need a heat tool for this effect. I got interrupted by the phone, so by the time I came back it had dried a bit more, but it's okay because I wanted to put another layer onto this anyway, and that's what I do here. This time I just grab a bit of my cardboard and I just scoop the gesso out and apply it this way. Doing this technique I would always do 2 or 3 layers of the gesso. Now this will give me cracks, but it gives you more a kind of bubbled effect, but it was an effect that I wanted to show you anyway. So here I've got very close to the gesso and I'm applying a lot of heat in the one area at a time, and there you can see that it starts to bubble. Now this is a bit of a slow process, and when I say slow, I think maybe in total I spent about 10 minutes on the different layers just activating this. Now the bubbles will go back down, but you'll see when I come on with another layer of gesso that eventually you will get some that continue to stick up, and I think this just gives a really nice textured background. You'll see some of the bubbles are quite small and others are much larger. Just going to let you see this bit for a moment and then we will jump ahead. So here you'll see the amount of texture in it. Now as I say, some of the bubbles do go back down, but with the next layer we will get more of those. So basically going to take my piece of card with some gesso on it again and applying it quite thickly. I don't want this to be smooth in any way at all, and just going over everything that's underneath. Now just got this palette knife, and you could use anything, and I'm just putting some lines across the page. I just want to try and get something other than just the bubbles coming up. So I do that, you know, up and down the page, just going from side to side, and then I'm going to follow the exact same approach as before, and I'm just going to start to heat this up. And again I will stop and focus on particular areas, and you will see in a moment that the bubbles start to rise again. Now at this point it will, because the gesso's thick, the stuff that was underneath, which was still wet, will also activate at this point. And again you can see the bubbles rise and then fall. Now you do need to be careful at this stage because you can actually burn it. If you stay on it for too long, it will actually start to almost singe the gesso, and you can actually kind of change the colour of it. There I've jumped on just a little bit, and what you'll see happen in a moment is that some of the gesso starts to pop up and bubble out from underneath. It's almost like molten lava coming out. But this to me just gives great texture. Now I've put it on my whole piece of card here, but of course this is something you could do in just one area of a piece of art. So there you can see how textured that is. So just wanted to show you this I made a few years ago. This was actually using a crackle medium, so if you wanted to use crackle medium, that's fine. I'll link the video to this particular one down below and at the end. So here I've got this, and I'll show you it's still soft to the touch, so this will need a lot of drying. But what I'm going to do is to take my 2 glimmer mists, and I just want to show you the effect that can be created here. A lot of the kind of glitter stuff at the bottom, so just giving that a good shake from side to side. For anyone that doesn't know, you should shake them from side to side rather than up and down, because if you do it up and down, the glitter can get stuck in the bit that sprays and actually block it. So again, I'll put the colours of these down below. So just giving that a spray, 2 or 3 pumps, and I'm going to do the other colour at the top, and I'm going to let them run into each other. And although these are colours that look like they wouldn't go well together, I think they actually do. But I do want them to mix a bit, so I'm going to let them, just going to move it from side to side and let the two spread into each other. Now at this stage I give it a little dry, but I am going to go back and put some more spray on. At this point, of course, because that gesso isn't fully dry, it could still bubble further. I like to colour at the top there where the two had mixed more, so I'm just going to do a bit more mixing direct onto the page here. And I think what this does is it really brings out how textured this piece is. Oops, and I dropped it there, but it's okay. No damage done. And again, I will give that a dry. So moving back to those that put the plastic wrap on, this was the pearlised watercolours, and you can see there that there's a bit of a crackle effect in it, and the same with this one with the ordinary watercolours, and I think these are really nice. Now the acrylic paint one isn't fully dry yet, but I wanted to let you see it at this point. So you can see there's some nice markings on that. Some of the crackling is from the very first layer of paint, but a lot of it is from that top layer. And again, this gives a different but a nice effect. So all in all, I'm very pleased with these. If you're not in the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group and you'd like to join us, I will leave a link below, and of course I'll also leave a link to Nina's video. This one, I don't think I'm going to do anything more with this, albeit I might put a bit more spray on it. Not sure what I'm going to do with the others, so if there's something you would like to see me make with them, then do leave some suggestions in the comments box below. But I hope this has given you some ideas for how to create crackle effects without actually having any crackle medium. So if you like this, please do give me the thumbs up, subscribe, and I hope to see you again next time. Take care, bye for now.